Welcome to another photographic moment, and I'm in one of my favorite locations, Hocking Hills at Rose Lake, and this is one of the perfect locations for Okay, see, isn't this a lot better? When I started the video earlier, I was out at Rose Lake. If you notice, I was completely dark and the background was very bright, and that's because I wanted to use the first part of that video and then refilm it here to illustrate an important point, and that's how the camera sees the light. And even though this is this inexpensive digital video camera, it's very similar to how a 35 millimeter digital camera sees the light. Is a little bit less range than what your eye sees, and what that light meter does, it will compensate for the bright areas sometimes, and leave the areas that aren't in the light very, very dark in the shadow. So the first part of that video was a good illustration of that point. In landscape photography, especially in the fall when you've got a low sun, it's important to try to get up as early as possible or shoot as late as possible in the day. And I keep saying that because of that fact. The higher the sun gets, the more bright the light gets, the darker the shadows become, and the more difficult it is to maintain an accurate exposure throughout the entire frame of the image when you're dealing with this very bright and dark areas. I was talking about panoramas, doing digital panoramas. I'm set up here this morning. This beautiful maple tree, all decked out in gold for autumn, and I've got a rising sun coming up over a hillside, so it's kind of more to the edge rather than up above, so I have more of a delicate light to work with. Plus it's streaming through the trees, so I'm going to do a little bit of that starlight effect and using a very small aperture. And doing the digital panorama, the following points are very key to do it correctly. When I say a digital panorama, it's either 3 or 4 frames shot together, and then in Photoshop, in the photo merge function and bridge, I think it started with Photoshop CS2, I merged all 3 of those exposures together for a panoramic image. But there's some key things you have to keep in mind when doing that. One, you need a good tripod with a ball head, meaning you can rotate that camera evenly on an axis, left to right, right to left. It should have a bubble level on it, so that that tripod is perfectly level. The camera should, and I didn't put one on, I usually do, but a bubble level on the camera to make sure that is perfectly level as well. You can do it either vertical or horizontal. It's very important to keep that camera perfectly level, and have a ball head on a tripod that can turn just like this, right to left. Now, when I do the digital panorama, I'm very careful I don't have a polarizing filter on the front element of that lens, because each section that you turn that lens toward the sky and you have a polarizing filter, it changes that hue of the light just a little bit. And when the photo merge function is trying to work, it won't match up good, especially if you have a blue sky in that panoramic image. It just won't work, because there'll be a different shade of blue because of that polarizer filter for every little bit of angle change you make. So make sure you don't have a polarizing filter on the front element of the camera. The thing I also try to do is when I do those exposures, I overlap maybe about 20% of each frame. So I pick out an element in a panoramic image that I see that I want to photograph the end result. And I figure the trees are a good thing to use, because then you can have a good frame of reference for each exposure as your point of overlap. So it has more to work with. It's about 20% overlap one way, 20% overlap the other way from exposure to exposure. That way you get a good matchup of all the details. Okay, hey, it's me again. I'm on the Upper Ridge Trail at Conquest Hollow, enjoying the view and all the beautiful fall color that's out right now. And good point I wanted to make is sometimes a good photographer has to know when not to take pictures, which can be just as important as to when to take pictures. And knowing the light and how the light relates to the subject and how that translates into the final photograph is so important. This is a perfect example. Most people that are out, just doing casual hikes with point-and-shoot cameras, taking tons of shots. That's great if you're just doing snapshots of family and friends and stuff, but you're not going to get good shots of fall color because it's so bright and contrasting today and windy. It's really the opposite of what I look for as ideal conditions. I've been up here before photographing down into the gorge and in the valleys with all the color on more of a still, rainy day when the mist just goes in between these trees out here, and it's really beautiful. Let me turn the camera around. Show you what I mean. Down through here, there's so much nice scenes to be captured. But like I said, it's like a day today is just too bright and contrasty for me. So a good alternative when you're out on a location like this, you've traveled, you only have today to work with, is to think of some alternative subjects. And usually, like a day like today, when the light is so bright and harsh, or this time of day, I go in and I do a lot of close-up macro work with this macro lens, and especially in autumn, I love getting on the forest floor, and it's just amazing all the different variations in color and the designs and all the different types of leaves on the ground. Really make for some strikingly beautiful images when I get down close and I get within 4 or 5 inches of the subject. And so this is a good time to do that. Other than that, it's just good to just slow down, not to be in such a hurry to take so many pictures. It's not a good photography, especially with nature and landscapes. It's not a question of quantity, it's a question of quality. And knowing when the light is good, when the conditions are going to be good for your subject, that's important. But what's even more important is when you're on a location, is not to feel like you have to take pictures because that's what you're out here to do. It's good just to take it in sometimes and just sit and relax and appreciate the subject, and then come back when the light is a little bit better. You're going to have a better chance of getting a good shot that way. So knowing when not to take a picture is just as important as knowing when to take a photograph.